Alex sat on the porch of his modest cabin, the warm sun casting long shadows across the alien landscape. He had always dreamed of this moment, a peaceful life on another planet, far away from the noise and chaos of Earth. His new home was a small green world, with rolling hills and sparkling rivers. It was quiet. The air was fresh, the skies always clear. There were no crowded streets or blaring horns, just the hum of nature around him. It was perfect. He had spent the last few months setting up his new life, planting crops and building a shelter from the natural resources of the land. He had no family or friends here. It was just him and the land, his escape from the world he once knew. The planet, named Valtora, was not on any major travel route, which made it ideal for starting over. No one would bother him. No one would look for him. This was his second chance. He took a deep breath and leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms above his head. The wind carried the sweet scent of wildflowers, and the sound of the nearby river was a soothing lullaby. Alex had grown used to the silence, and for once in his life, he felt truly at peace. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this calm, this free. But just as he was about to close his eyes and enjoy the moment, a loud, crashing noise shattered the tranquility. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and a brilliant flash of light streaked across the sky. Alex jumped to his feet, his heart racing. What was that? His first thought was that it could be a meteor shower, but the explosion-like sound suggested something far more dramatic. He ran to the edge of his property, eyes scanning the horizon. He couldn't see anything at first, but then, just beyond the trees, a thick plume of smoke rose into the sky. It was coming from the other side of the hills, the direction he had never ventured before. Curiosity pulled at him. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to stay safe in his quiet little life. But another part, the adventurous part, he'd buried deep inside, urged him to investigate. Grabbing a pack and filling it with essentials, Alex quickly made his way toward the source of the crash. The land was rough, and the climb up the hill was steeper than he anticipated. He wiped the sweat from his brow as he pushed forward, determined to find out what had happened. The smoke grew thicker, and as he reached the top of the hill, the wreckage came into view. A ship. Not just any ship, but a massive, sleek vessel, crumpled and smoking in a large crater. It looked nothing like any human-made craft Alex had seen. The design was elegant and unfamiliar, almost organic in shape, like it had been grown instead of built. Strange symbols were etched into the surface, glowing faintly in the dim light of the setting sun. Alex stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. Was this some kind of alien ship? Could it be? He had heard stories of extraterrestrial life, but he never imagined he would be the one to encounter it. His heart pounded in his chest. His peaceful life was slipping away, replaced by something unknown and dangerous. But he couldn't turn back now. His curiosity had taken over. He cautiously approached the wreckage, stepping around debris that had scattered across the ground. The smell of burning metal and something else, something sweet and unfamiliar, filled the air. As he neared the ship, he saw movement inside. His breath caught in his throat. Someone, or something, was still alive in there. Alex didn't hesitate. He rushed toward the broken ship, trying to find an entrance. He was no expert on alien technology, but he had learned a thing or two in his years of tinkering with old machinery. Finally, he found a hatch, half buried in the dirt. It was damaged, but with a bit of effort, he managed to pry it open. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, and the light was dim. His eyes adjusted, and he could make out the shapes of people, or creatures, inside the ship. There were 3 of them. 2 were unconscious, slumped against the walls, but one was standing, her body silhouetted against the dim light of the ship's interior. She was tall, with long limbs and features that were undeniably alien. Her skin shimmered in a way that suggested it was smooth, almost metallic. Her eyes, when they met his, were wide with surprise and something else. Fear? Alex didn't know what to do. He had no medical experience, no knowledge of alien species, and no idea what kind of danger he might be in. But the woman, despite her fear, looked at him with a strange sense of recognition, as if she expected him. You can help us? Her voice was soft but clear, with an accent that was unlike anything he had ever heard. It sent a shiver down his spine. She took a hesitant step toward him, her movements graceful, but cautious. I don't know if I can, Alex stammered, still in shock. I'm not trained for this.
I just live here. The woman nodded slowly, her expression shifting from fear to something like hope. We're stranded.
My ship! It's broken! We need help!
Alex didn't know what to say. His mind was racing. Could he trust her? Should he even try to help? But as he looked at her, standing there with her wide, desperate eyes, he felt an odd sense of responsibility wash over him. Maybe it was the loneliness he had felt for so long. Or maybe it was something more, but there was no denying it. This was his chance to do something beyond the quiet life he had so carefully built.
I'll help,
Alex said finally, surprising himself with his decision. I don't know how, but I'll help.
The woman's expression softened into what could only be described as gratitude. She took another step forward, her hand reaching out to him. Thank you!
My name is Zyra. As she spoke, Alex couldn't help but notice the way her voice seemed to resonate in the air, as if it carried more than just words. It was different, almost musical. Ah, Zyra extended her hand, and Alex, though uncertain of everything happening around him, reached out to take it. The moment their hands touched, something strange passed between them. It was as if a current of energy had flowed from her to him, something warm and electric at once. He jerked his hand back, startled by the sensation. What was that? He asked, his voice trembling. Zyra blinked, her gaze intensifying.
I don't know.
It's strange. I've never felt it before. Alex took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. Let's get your friends out of here, he said, his voice more confident than he felt. Zyra nodded, and together they moved to the two unconscious women. The wreckage was unstable, and time was running out. Alex's mind raced as he worked, but in the back of his head, something told him that his peaceful life was over. The life he had imagined on Valtora would never be the same. The alien women next door had found him, and everything was about to change.
Alex worked quickly, his hands trembling slightly as he helped the alien women from the wrecked ship. The two unconscious figures were more fragile than he'd expected.
One of them, a woman with dark blue skin and long silver hair, was lighter than she looked, but still, lifting her required more effort than Alex had anticipated. Zyra, the tall alien with the shimmering skin, was still by his side, guiding him as he carefully carried her companion. We need to get them to shelter, Zyra said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. There's no time to lose.
Alex nodded.
His house wasn't far, and he could rig a temporary bed for them. It wasn't much, but it was better than the open wreckage. He had no idea what kind of injuries they might have, but he wasn't about to leave them out in the open. Zyra moved quickly beside him, her long legs covering ground faster than Alex could keep up. She seemed almost unnaturally calm for someone in her situation, stranded on a foreign planet with a damaged ship and two injured companions. But when Alex stole a glance at her, her face was etched with concern, her eyes always flickering back to the two women they were rescuing. When they reached his cabin, Zyra quickly took charge. She directed Alex to lay the two unconscious women on the makeshift cots in his small living area. The cabin, though small, was neat and functional, just the way Alex liked it. He had built it himself, piece by piece, and it was the one place where he felt truly at home. It was hard to imagine that it would be the place where alien strangers would take refuge. As the women were settled, Zyra began to check their vitals. She seemed to know exactly what to do, even without the medical tools that Alex would have expected. She touched the injured women gently, her fingers glowing faintly as if her skin itself was a tool, and murmured something under her breath in a language Alex couldn't understand. It was strange, almost hypnotic, the way she moved, her touch calm and methodical. Alex stood at the edge of the room watching her. He felt out of place, unsure of what to do. His peaceful life had already been disrupted, and now, with these alien women in his cabin, it was slipping away even faster. After a few minutes, Zyra straightened up, wiping her hands on her shirt. "They're stable," she said, her voice filled with relief. "They'll be all right." "Good," Alex said, trying to sound confident. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than he had signed up for. "What happened to your ship?" Zyra hesitated, her gaze flicking to her unconscious companions before meeting Alex's eyes. "We were attacked," she said quietly. "Pirates. They were after our cargo. They knew we were on a diplomatic mission, and they didn't care. We barely managed to escape, but they damaged the ship beyond repair." Alex absorbed the words. Pirates? He had heard stories of space pirates, but they seemed more like something out of a bad science fiction movie. To think that such things could happen so close to him was unsettling. He looked down at the floor, trying to make sense of the situation. Everything about this was alien to him, not just the beings in his house, but the very world they came from. "Diplomatic mission?" Alex asked, curiosity overtaking his unease. "What kind of mission?" Zyra's eyes softened as she sat on one of the chairs, rubbing her temples. She looked exhausted, as though the ordeal had taken more out of her than she had let on. "We were sent to explore and establish peaceful relationships with other species," she said. "Our people are part of an alliance, one that spans many systems. We seek to bring harmony, exchange knowledge, and offer support." Alex didn't know how to respond. The idea of a galaxy-spanning alliance sounded so grand and distant, like something out of a history book. He had never thought that something like that could exist, let alone that he would be in the middle of it. "But why me?" he blurted out, the question that had been burning in his mind ever since he found them. "Why did you come here? Why me?" "I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about any of this." Zyra's lips parted, as though she was choosing her words carefully. "It wasn't planned. But when our ship was damaged, we didn't have many options. Our communication systems were down, and our location was off the beaten path. This planet, your planet. It was the closest source of help. And when I saw you, something felt right. We have ways of sensing energy, emotions. We are attuned to those around us. I felt your presence, even before I saw you." Alex stared at her, unsure of what to make of her words. Was she saying that they had been drawn to him somehow? He had never believed in anything like psychic connections or special energy. But in that moment, he felt something stir inside him, something unfamiliar. His curiosity about her was growing, even as his mind screamed to remind him that this wasn't normal. Nothing about this was normal. "So you knew I would help you?" Alex asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice. Zyra nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "Not exactly. But I knew that you were different, that you could help. I just didn't know how." Alex wasn't sure what to say to that. He had never seen himself as someone with special abilities, or any kind of connection to the universe. He had always just been an ordinary guy trying to make a living, keeping to himself. The idea that he was in the middle of something bigger than he could comprehend was almost too much to process. "I never asked for any of this," Alex muttered, more to himself than to Zyra. Zyra watched him for a long moment, her eyes soft and understanding. "Sometimes life has other plans," she said quietly. "But that doesn't mean you can't choose how to move forward." Her words hung in the air, heavy and profound. Alex didn't know what to think or feel. His entire world had shifted in the span of a few hours, and he didn't know what the next day would bring. All he knew was that his peaceful life had been shattered by something he couldn't control. Just then, one of the unconscious women stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She gasped softly, taking in her surroundings before looking at Zyra. Where are we?" she asked, her voice shaky. Zyra stood up, moving to her side. "You're safe," she said gently.
"We're on Valtora, at Alex's home. He's helping us."
The woman's eyes flicked to Alex, and for the first time, he felt a sense of unease. What would they want from him now? What role did he play in all of this? He had gone from being a solitary human on a quiet planet to the center of an intergalactic encounter, and he had no idea what his future held. "Thank you," the woman said softly, her gaze sincere. "We wouldn't have survived without your help." Alex didn't know how to respond. It's nothing," he said awkwardly.
"I just did what I could."
As he looked around the cabin, at the 3 alien women who had come into his life without warning, he realized that his peaceful existence had ended. Whether he liked it or not, he was part of something much bigger than he could have imagined. And as he glanced at Zyra, who was looking at him with that knowing expression, he couldn't help but wonder what was coming next. The days that followed the crash felt like a blur to Alex. His peaceful life on Valtora, the life he had worked so hard to build, was slipping away, replaced by something he could barely understand. He couldn't escape it. Not the constant presence of the 3 alien women in his cabin, not the questions that continued to swirl in his mind, and certainly not the strange sense of responsibility that had settled over him since he decided to help them. Zyra and her companions had recovered quickly, thanks to whatever mysterious methods they had used. The other 2 women, whose names were Lyra and Yara, were now fully awake and able to move about, though they still seemed fatigued. Lyra, with her violet skin and glowing eyes, had an air of quiet authority, while Yara, who had silver hair and emerald green eyes, was more reserved, always observing, but rarely speaking. Despite their alien nature, the women were not as frightening as Alex had imagined at first. They were different, yes, but they weren't threatening. They were kind in their own way, and had a sense of calm that was oddly contagious. They seemed genuinely grateful for his help, and over time, Alex had grown accustomed to their presence. He even found himself looking forward to their conversations, though he still couldn't quite shake the feeling that he was caught up in something far beyond his control. He had spent the last few days helping them in whatever way he could, though there was little he could do to assist with their alien technology. Zyra was the most capable when it came to repairs, using tools that seemed to appear from nowhere. There were times when Alex would watch her work, mesmerized by the way her fingers glided over surfaces, her touch glowing with a faint light as she fixed things that he couldn't even begin to understand. It was strange, being around them. They didn't talk much about their mission or their people, and that was something that Alex had noticed. They were kind enough to answer his questions about their species, but their answers were always vague, as if there was something they weren't saying. Zyra, in particular, seemed to be hiding something. There were moments when Alex caught her looking at him with an expression that was impossible to read. It was like she was holding something back, something important.
One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Alex sat outside his cabin, leaning back in his chair and gazing at the stars.
The sky on Valtora was breathtaking, clear and full of distant constellations that were completely unfamiliar to him. It was beautiful, but it only made him feel more alone. He couldn't shake the feeling that the peace he had once found here was gone forever. He had barely noticed when Zyra had joined him outside. Her quiet footsteps were almost impossible to hear on the soft earth, but he caught a glimpse of her standing by the door, her long silhouette framed by the cabin's light. "Can I join you?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Alex nodded, gesturing for her to take the chair beside him. Of course. She sat down, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. They both stared up at the sky, but Alex could feel her presence beside him, like a weight in the air. He wasn't sure why, but her silence always felt different from the others. It was as if there was something unspoken between them, something that neither of them had yet to address. Finally, Zyra spoke. "You've been quiet lately," she said, her tone gentle. "Is something wrong?"
Alex shifted in his chair, rubbing the back of his neck.
"I don't know. Everything feels off. I never imagined my life would be like this." He paused, his eyes still fixed on the stars. "I came here to escape, to be alone. And now I don't know what I'm doing anymore." Zyra's gaze never left him. "You've helped us," she said softly. "You've done more than you realize. You gave us shelter. You helped us survive. You are part of something bigger now." Alex let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, I guess. But I never signed up for any of this. I was just looking for a quiet life, you know? Something simple." Zyra tilted her head slightly, her eyes studying him with an intensity that made Alex feel uneasy.
"There is no such thing as a simple life," she said quietly. "You can't escape the world, Alex. Not really."
"Sometimes things just find you." Her words hit him harder than he expected. It wasn't just what she said, but the way she said it. There was something in her voice, a sadness that he hadn't heard before. For a moment, Alex wondered if there was more to her than the calm, collected demeanor she always wore. Maybe, just maybe, she was just as lost as he felt. "I didn't ask for this," he repeated, more to himself than to her. Zyra's expression softened. She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "No, you didn't."
"But you have a choice now. You can turn away and go back to the life you knew, or you can help us."
Alex looked at her, meeting her gaze for the first time in days. Her eyes were full of something he couldn't quite understand, something that both unsettled and intrigued him.
"Help you?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief.
"Help you do what?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the sky, as if searching for an answer among the stars. "Our mission," she began slowly, "is to find allies, to forge new bonds with other species. It's about survival."
"My people, we're at a crossroads."
"There are forces out there that want to see us fail. They want to destroy what we've worked for. The alliance we've built, the peace we've created. It's all at risk." Alex's brow furrowed. "You mean your people are in danger?" Zyra nodded, her expression grave.
"Yes, but not just my people. It's the whole galaxy. There are those who believe in domination, in taking power by force.
And they'll do anything to stop us from succeeding." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Alex didn't know what to say. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a diplomat. He was just a man trying to live a quiet life on a quiet planet. He hadn't asked for any of this, but now it seemed like there was no way to escape. The galaxy, with all its dangers and complexities, had come crashing into his world. And now, whether he liked it or not, he was part of it. "I don't know if I can help you with all that," Alex said, his voice uncertain. I don't know what you need from me." Zyra's eyes softened, and she gave him a small, understanding smile. "You've already helped more than you think," she said. "Your choice to help us, your willingness to stand by us."
"That is enough. You don't have to be a soldier. You just have to be who you are." Her words didn't fully comfort him, but they did something else.
They made him feel less alone in all of this. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as powerless as he had thought. Maybe there was a way for him to make a difference, even if it wasn't in the way he had ever imagined. The night stretched on, the stars above them, endless and beautiful. and for the first time in days, Alex felt a glimmer of hope. He didn't know what the future held, but whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. He had found something, or someone, to stand by, and that was more than he could have ever hoped for. The days passed in a slow, steady rhythm, but for Alex, each one felt like it carried the weight of a lifetime. The world he had once known, the peaceful solitude of Valtora, seemed more distant with each sunrise. The women, who had once seemed so strange and foreign, were now a constant presence in his life. It was hard to believe that only a week had passed since the crash. In that time, everything had changed. Alex had helped Zyra, Lyra, and Yara as best as he could, though he was still uncertain of his role in their mission. Despite the many questions he had about their true purpose, they had remained tight-lipped, giving him only small pieces of information. They had told him about their species, their mission, and the danger they faced. But the details, the parts that really mattered, were always just out of reach, like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. But there was something about Zyra that made him want to trust her, something in her eyes, in the way she spoke, that made him believe she was telling the truth. Still, there was always that nagging feeling at the back of his mind. What if they were using him for something he didn't fully understand? One evening, as the three women worked on the damaged ship, Alex sat outside, his gaze fixed on the sky. The stars seemed endless, as if the entire universe were watching him. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. He had always imagined the stars as a distant thing, something to dream about from the safety of his home. But now, those stars felt too close, as if they were pulling him into a story he hadn't asked to be a part of.
Alex, are you coming in? Lyra's voice interrupted his thoughts. Alex turned to see Lyra standing at the door, her violet eyes soft in the fading light. She had a way of looking at him that made him feel both small and important at the same time. It was a strange sensation, but one that had become familiar over the past few days. He stood up, stretching his stiff limbs. "I'll be in a minute," he said, his voice low. "Just need some air." Lyra nodded, her expression unreadable. She didn't press him further, just turned and walked back inside.
Alex followed her slowly, his mind still swirling with questions. He wasn't sure why he felt so drawn to them, especially Zyra, but he couldn't deny the connection that had formed between them, something that was deeper than just helping them survive. It was as if their fates were tied together now, whether he liked it or not. Inside, Zyra and Yara were talking quietly, their voices low and calm. They looked up as Alex entered, and for the first time in days, Alex noticed that the tension between them had shifted. It wasn't as heavy as it had been before. They were no longer strangers. The bond they had formed, through their shared struggles, their reliance on each other, was stronger than anything Alex could have imagined. Zyra smiled at him as he sat down. "You're still awake," she said, her voice soft but warm. "You should rest." "I will," Alex replied, though he wasn't sure he could sleep. His mind was too active, turning over everything that had happened.
"I've just been thinking." "About what?" Yara asked, her voice quiet but curious.
Alex hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to sound like he was complaining, but the truth was, he didn't know where he fit in all of this.
He had tried to ignore the questions, to focus on helping them in whatever small way he could, but now they were becoming harder to push aside.
"About all of this," he said,
motioning around the room. "About why you're here, what you really need from me. I don't know what to make of it anymore. I'm not a part of your mission. I'm not a diplomat or a warrior or anything special. I'm just a guy trying to live a quiet life." Zyra studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful.
"You're more than you think, Alex," she said softly.
"What you're doing now, helping us, it matters. You may not see it, but you've already made a difference." Alex looked at her, his brow furrowing in confusion.
"How?" "By choosing to stand with us," Zyra said, "by not turning us away when you could have."
That choice is more important than anything else. Alex opened his mouth to respond, but he didn't know what to say. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, as someone who didn't make waves. He didn't seek out adventure or conflict, but somehow, he had found himself in the middle of something that was far beyond his understanding. "You think I'm special?" he asked, the words feeling strange as they left his mouth. Zyra nodded, her eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity. "I do." "And so do they," she said, glancing at Lyra and Yara. Yara gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod of agreement. Lyra, however, said nothing, her expression unreadable as always. Alex was silent for a moment, the weight of her words settling over him. He had never been the kind of person to accept compliments or praise easily. But something about the way they looked at him, the way they spoke, made him feel as though he was more than just the man who had fixed a few things around the cabin. He felt as if he was becoming a part of their world, whether he wanted to or not. But with that feeling came a new question. What would happen when they left? Zyra had mentioned that their ship was being repaired, that they would be leaving Valtora once it was fixed. Alex had known it was coming, but now that it was a reality, it felt like a bitter pill to swallow. He had grown attached to them, to their strange alien presence, and the idea of them leaving was harder than he had imagined. "I don't know if I'm ready for you to leave," Alex admitted, his voice quiet. Zyra's expression softened. "I know it's hard," she said, her tone gentle. "But this is what we do. This is who we are."
We can't stay here forever. Alex felt a pang in his chest.
He wasn't sure what he had expected. Perhaps some grand resolution where everything would work out perfectly, where the aliens would stay and everything would return to normal. But the truth was, their world was not his world. They had their own mission, their own path, and Alex was just a part of it for a brief moment in time. "I know," he said, looking down at his hands. "It's just, I go, what?" Zyra reached out, placing her hand on his.
We don't either,
She said quietly. "But we're here now, and that's enough for me." Alex looked up at her, meeting her eyes for the first time in days. And for the first time, he felt something that wasn't confusion or fear. It was acceptance. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that, for now, he had made a difference. And that was something he could hold on to. The night stretched on, and for a while, they sat together in silence, the quiet hum of the cabin the only sound in the room. Outside, the stars continued to shine, distant and endless, but now they didn't seem quite so far away. Alex had never believed in fate, but somehow, in this moment, he began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was a reason for everything that had happened.